everyone, Rowan here, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be going over my April wrap-up. So for April, it was actually kind of a really tough month in terms of the quality of books I was reading. I read a lot. I read 23 books this month, I believe, but my problem was that a lot of them, I think over like a third of them, were only like 2-star ratings. That I read a lot of books that I didn't like the first book so much, but I decided to give the sequel a chance, and the sequel was just as bad, if not worse. So I kind of gave a lot of books a chance I shouldn't have, and I should have spent my time reading other books, but I didn't. So last month I read Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes, and this month I picked up the other 2 books in the series, and those are Rebel Spring and Gathering Darkness. I read both of these and I gave them both 5-star ratings. I absolutely adored these books, and I'm really mad that I waited so long to read them. I just think that they're so intriguing with all the different characters and the different like landscapes, and everybody's up to something, and oh, I love it. So last month I also read Half-Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout, the first book in her Covenant series, I believe, and I finished it this month. So I read Pure, Deity, Apollyon, and the last book in the series, Sentinel. I think this is kind of an older series, but I actually ended up really enjoying it. I really like Jennifer L. Armentrout's style of writing when it comes to kind of like easier, more fun, rainy day sort of reading. And I really had a great time with these books. I thought they were interesting, fun, kick-ass, a little cliche sometimes, but I really liked the heroine. And overall, I mean, I blew through them. I thought they were really great. So I gave them all 4 out of 5 stars. So next I read Sex Criminals, Volume 1 by Matt Fraction. This is a graphic novel that I picked up at Comic-Con. I actually really love this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and it was super funny. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be so hilarious. But I didn't know much about it going into it, so it really just took me by surprise. And this is about, if you guys don't know, 2 people that find out when they have sex together that they can stop time, so they decide to rob a bank. And it's super just hilarious. The main characters are really funny, and them kind of going over like their childhood and their teenage years and when they started having sex and found out about their weird powers, and it was so funny. It was cracking me up. And then I read Deadly Class Volume 1 by Rick Remender. This is another graphic novel I also picked up at Comic-Con, and I really loved this one. This one was absolutely fantastic. I ended up giving this one 5 out of 5 stars. The thing that initially drew me in was the cover is just amazing. I mean, I think it's so cool. And it's about this boy who is living on the streets, and he's thinking about killing himself, and then he gets approached by a strange girl who invites him to like this academy where they train them to become assassins. And it's really cool, and again, it was super funny, and the art style I really love in this one. And it just was kind of strange, but really, really great. And then for April, my Goodreads reading group theme was sci-fi, so the first book we read was The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I had not read this yet, but I've been meaning to, so I went and picked it up from like Half Price Books or something. I've heard a lot of hype about this book and the second one, and I really was expecting to love this, and I actually didn't. I really, really loved the beginning. I thought the beginning was eerie, I thought it was kind of like unsettling, and I loved finding out like what happened to the world, what happened with the invaders. I mean, everything was really interesting up until the point where Cassie is no longer alone. And at that point, it kind of turned into like more of a weird sort of romance story than like a story of survival. I didn't enjoy it as much as I liked just the beginning. So this book only got 3 out of 5 stars for me, and I'm not sure if I'll be picking up the next one. The second book we chose for my Goodreads group was Across the Universe by Beth Revis. I read this a really, really long time ago and remembered absolutely nothing about it, and I have the other 2 books, so I figured, why not read the series? But unfortunately, I did not like this book enough to continue with the series. This book had the potential to be really, really interesting. It's about a group of people that are on a spaceship headed to a new planet, and this girl is cryogenically frozen, and she gets woken up early. And there's all this like unrest on the ship, and you find out that like there's lots of secrets and like dark stuff happening. The problem with this book, same with the last one, was the romance. It was just overwhelming, like the whole story. The romance wasn't even good, was the thing that bothered me. It was kind of a weird insta-lovey, like sad romance, and I don't know. And a lot of the potential for like the mystery and intrigue was kind of predictable, so I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars. So I reread Rebel Belle by Rachel Hawkins because I was planning on picking up the sequel. I really, really like this book. I think it's really fun and cutesy and girly and just it's one of those rainy day books. And I just really have fun with this one. So this one has 4 out of 5 stars, and like I said, I reread it, so nothing new here. And then I picked up the sequel, Miss Mayhem, from the library, and I was so excited for this, you guys. I've been waiting for this since I read Rebel Belle, and this story, I just wanted to know what happened, and this book was one of the biggest disappointments so far this year. This book felt almost like separate from the first book. I mean, everything that I loved about the first book, all the charm, all the wit, all the humor, wasn't even in this book. And all of the chemistry between the characters that you felt in the first book were totally gone. I mean, I felt like the author just totally lost her mojo for some reason, and it just was horrible. It fell so flat, and it was not what I was expecting, and it was depressing, and it was just weird. It was a really strange place to take the second book. And my problem is, I don't even know if there's going to be a third book. This book ends on such a strange note, and I haven't seen anything about there being a third book that I'm really, really confused by this. So I don't even know what to think. I only gave this book 2 out of 5 stars, and that is mostly just me being really generous on my part. This month I also reread Sarafina, which I read really recently, and I was really happy to reread it. I found it a lot easier to go through the second time. It was really hard for me to keep up the first time I read it, I think just because I wasn't like really invested in this book, and when they started bringing in all these different races and countries, I just kind of spaced out and didn't pay attention. So reading it the second time, I enjoyed it a lot more, but it still only has 3 out of 5 stars for me. And I reread Sarafina because I picked up Shadowscale, the sequel, and I liked this one more and didn't like it more. In this one, we finally get to see a lot more of the world. We get to kind of connect more with Sarafina and all of the other people that are like her, that half dragon, half human. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it, but at the same time, it was very slow and very boring. But because of the few things I did really like about it, I did end up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. This month I also reread Alienated by Melissa Landers. I read this last year sometime and didn't really like it. I decided to give it a chance because I saw the second one in my library and snagged it. So I reread this one and again, really did not like it. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I was kind of running with the sci-fi theme this month and was really excited for aliens, but from what I remembered, there wasn't really much alien stuff going on, and I was totally right. These aliens are basically exactly like people. Like, I mean, it's like the author threw in like a couple things, like they have no belly button, which, woohoo, so original, you know. And on top of that, there's this horrible, horrible, horrible romance that I just despise. It was so just, it's ridiculous. So, yay for this book, 2 out of 5 stars. Not even sure why you got the 2 now that I'm thinking about it, but I must have been in a really generous mood this month, I guess. So because I had it and I found myself amused by this silly story, I read the sequel, Invaded. And this book was just as bad as the first. More sappy romance, more weird alien stuff that isn't really even weird alien stuff. I mean, it was just really disappointing. I'm not even really going to talk about this one much because there's not much to say. I did like seeing her on the other planet. She goes, the main character, I can't even remember her name. She goes to the other alien planet, and there was some interesting stuff there, so that got it 2 out of 5 stars. This month I also reread The Nightmare Affair by Mindy Arnett. I got this from Book Outlet a little while ago, and I read it like 2 years ago, or something like that. And I decided to reread it, and it was okay. It was fun. That's what I gotta say. It was fun. Unfortunately, I have to compare this to Hex Hall by Rachel Hawkins, I believe, wrote that. Because it's kind of that same, like, fun, supernatural school idea, but this one was not executed so well, and I didn't like the characters as much as I did with the Hex Hall series, so this one only got 2 out of 5. And then I read the sequel, The Nightmare Dilemma, and it was basically the same thing. Another mystery, same characters, same forbidden romance. So this one, again, I only gave 2 out of 5 stars. And then finally, in the middle of all these horrible books, I read something fantastic. I decided to read Attack on Titan Volume 1, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the author's name because I will butcher it. So if any of you guys have been following me on Twitter, you know, because I've been blowing up about it, I decided to watch the Attack on Titan anime series. I loved it beyond words. It was so good. It was so horrible, and I'm gonna tear up if I think about it right now. It's so fantastic, you guys. I highly recommend it to everybody. I mean, it's kind of dark and it's kind of scary, and it was so good. I can't stop thinking about it. The next day I went and bought myself a t-shirt. That's how much I liked it. So I decided to order this from the library, but I'd never read a manga before, and I hope I'm saying that right. This is how much I don't read them. I'm not even sure if that's how you say it. But I figured if I was going to start anywhere, I should start here, and I loved it. The reading backwards thing was kind of hard for me to get into, but the fact that this was a story I knew and already loved, and the art style is exactly the same, it was so fantastic. I am going to probably ask for the whole series for my birthday coming up because I just loved it. I thought it was so good. I obviously gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Rash, I want to say. I had heard a lot about this book and I've been waiting for it forever from the library, and I was so excited to go into it, and I didn't really like this one. Another 2 out of 5 stars. I found it to be kind of cliche and predictable, and oh my god, a love triangle, please no, and it just was bad. Awful love triangles, you guys, literally are the downfall of potentially good books. The next book I read was The Story Spinner by Becky Wallace, and for this one, I totally judged this book by its cover. I mean, look at the cover. It's kind of hideous. It's just weird and not very, attractive looking compared to a lot of books. But I saw it at the library and I grabbed it, and I actually really liked this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I was so surprised. This book kind of reminded me of Falling Kingdoms. It has multiple viewpoints, kind of that bigger world building thing going on, and it really worked in this book. I thought this book was really fun and really interesting, and I was really, really surprised to find that I liked it so much. And then I picked up Dream a Little Dream by Kristen Gear, I think. I had never read any of her books, but I know she writes the Ruby Red, Sapphire Blue, Emerald Green, whatever series. And this was a new one coming out, and I really love dream stuff. Really love dream stuff. When Inception came out, I went through this really weird, crazy intense Inception phase, and I like dream stuff. I think they're interesting. So I picked this one up, and it ended up being kind of a bit more cutesy, lighthearted than I expected, which I can have fun with. Don't get me wrong. The problem though was that I found the writing to be really kind of awkward and jumpy and strange sometimes. And I think I'm hoping of the right author. I believe Kristen Gear is a German or European author, so I believe these are translations, I want to say. And I'm wondering if it's just her writing style or if it's because it's translated over. Maybe it seems awkward, but I really had a problem with that. It made this book kind of tough to read. I only gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. After being kind of disappointed with that last book, I decided it was time to pick up Ruby Red by Kristen Gear because I've heard so much about this series just being great. And time travel is another thing that I really love reading about, and these covers are really pretty, so I was excited for this one. Another big disappointment, you guys. I mean, I've heard so much about how great these books are, and I was so disappointed with this first one. The whole book takes place in 2 days. People are already in love and kissing, and everything was just weird, and I don't know. I didn't really like this. The romance really just kind of did it for me. It was just typical, insta love, mushy, jerk guy, girl thrown into a situation that guy's a jerk about, sort of thing, and it just really bothered me. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars because the time travel concept saved it. Alright, you guys, those are all of the books that I read this month. 23. Holy cow. And I have reviews written for a lot of these books, so I will post those below if you guys are interested in checking them out. Feel free and let me know if you guys read any of those books and what you thought of them. I was really disappointed with April. I need a lot of really good books to read in May, so if you guys have any recommendations of some books I should check out that are great, please let me know because I feel like I'm kind of in a reading slump right now because I've just been so disappointed. And just so you guys know, I will not be doing a May TBR. I don't really have any books planned because I am kind of in a reading slump, so I'm just going to read whatever I feel like it. I really need to read some good stuff right now. So nothing planned, but I will be sure and keep you guys updated on what I am reading. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.